Students, good evening. With onset of coronavirus pandemic and consequent lockdown all over the country, our teaching learning process is severely disrupted. But it is difficult time. First, we have to care about the life, and then rest of the things will follow. In our endeavor to somehow keep in touch with our subject and topics which are supposed to be covered in our course on economic growth and development, I had already shared one YouTube video with you on the basic concepts of economic growth and development and some basic development theories. Today we'll be discussing about structural changes and economic growth. As I had indicated in our previous video, the literature in growth and development are like two separate streams. The growth theories, whether it is neoclassical growth theories or endogenous growth theories, they some sort of try to explain the balanced growth path. Say under neoclassical growth theory, in the stationary state, the growth of per capita capital is zero. That is K dot at K star is zero, right? So per capita capital doesn't grow. But per capita, if there is a technological progress and the rate of technological growth is Z, that is if xt is technology, xt dot over xt, which basically stands for the rate of growth of technology. If it is assumed to be G, then at stationary state, the per capita output or per capita income grows at G, at the rate of G. Okay, and of course in at stationary state or steady state in at steady state in neoclassical growth theory, the aggregate output or capital at level, aggregate capital, all those things, the capital will grow at the rate of n, where n is population growth rate, and output, not per capita output, aggregate output will grow at the rate of n plus g. Okay, so these balanced growth rate some sort of sustain the perpetual growth of the economy, the growth of capital, growth of consumption, growth of output in at the rate which we indicated. They sustain the continuous perpetual growth of the economy. Okay, so that is in of course in endogenous growth theory we try to, in a general equilibrium framework, we try to understand how the incentive for profit making facilitates innovations and these technological changes at the rate of G, which basically sustain the economic growth. Now, in development theories, what we discussed, that there are structural changes associated with this growth process. Basically, structural changes, we discussed many. Two structural changes which will take up here are basically changes in terms of composition of output, changes in terms of engagement of the workforce. So what we discussed that in under growth development theories, that at the initial level of development, generally the primary sector dominates the economy. Particularly if you go to early 19th century, maybe the primary sector even for the OECD countries was dominating the overall output. Maybe the share of agriculture primary sector was close to 90%. Okay, and even if we go back to Indian case, in early 1950s, the share of agriculture was more than 50%. Okay, gradually their share of agriculture has been declining in OECD countries, in emerging economies, and the share of industry and services compensate for the decline in share of agriculture. And as the economies attain maturity, the share of services sector becomes very dominant. And this shift in composition of output is also generally reflected in shift in workforce. Of course, in India, we are not seeing that. In India, today, services sector accounts close to more than 50% of GDP, but the share of workforce in services as a ratio of overall workforce will be hardly 25-30%. But in OECD countries, in many countries, it is observed that the change in composition of output is also reflected in shifts in the share of workforce. So as agriculture sector share decline in output, similarly the share of workforce working in agriculture as compared to the overall workforce has commensurately declined. Okay. Now this structural change, we have to have a integrated framework to discuss about this structural change along with the economic growth process. As we discussed earlier, when we were discussing theories of development, we didn't have a unified framework for theories of growth, where there are these stages of growth or big push theory. All these the dimensions were different. Okay, and the framework was not at all related to the framework which was used to explain the growth theories under neoclassical growth theories or under endogenous growth theories. Okay, so Acemoglu 2009, the reference which we are using for our course, Modern Growth Theories, in that book there is a chapter. I'll just tell you the chapter number. Yeah, chapter number 20, from pages 697 up to 721, 697 to 721. Chapter number 20, the title of the chapter is Structural Change and Economic Growth. In this chapter, he is basically presenting a unified framework which we can use for discussing growth, economic growth, as well as the structural changes within that. Okay, the structural change, as I said, in terms of shift in the composition of output, change in composition of output, and shift in the workforce. Okay, so today what we'll do in this discussion, we'll basically try to explain the structural changes in the economy from the demand side perspective. Okay, so from demand side perspective, how there is a change in demand from agriculture to manufacturing and to services, and this change in demand is basically reflected in change in growth rate of the agricultural sector vis-a-vis industry sector and services sector, and similarly the growth rate of workforce in the three different sectors. Okay, so what we'll observe finally is there is a the services sector grows at a higher rate as the economy progresses compared to the manufacturing sector or industrial sector, and the industrial sector or manufacturing sector in turn grows at a faster rate compared to the primary sector. Okay, and similarly the growth of workforce in the services sector grows at a faster rate compared to industry, and that at a faster rate compared to the primary sector or the agriculture sector. Okay, so the overall framework remains like the neoclassical or the endogenous growth theory framework. So here we have a consumer who is infinite living representative consumer, and we'll discuss about the utility function of the consumer. He is a utility maximizer, and subject to the standard constraints which we had discussed earlier. And then there is a producer who has a production function, and the producer is trying to maximize profit. So the basic framework of the model is I'll explain as below. See, I have a constant here basically because I'm working from home. I don't have the whiteboard, and this discussion involves lots of mathematics. And given the constant, I'll not able to do the derivations. But what I'll suggest is you try to follow the logic, and for details about the equations and derivations, you please follow Acemoglu 2009, the reference, and then it will be complete learning for you. As what I'm trying to do, I'm basically trying to explain the intuition, logic, and which will be helpful for you, and using this as the base, you refer Acemoglu for a complete understanding on this topic. So the model which we are using here is assuming that the population is growing at the rate of n. So we are defining LT is equal to L0 into e to power nt, where LT is the population at the time t. So here L0 means population at the initial time, that is L0, and here n is equal to L dot t over LT. Okay. Then the utility function is given by this equation in the red rectangular, within the red rectangular box. So u is equal to integration of ct into e to power minus rho minus nt dt. Okay, where ct is the per capita consumption of the representative household. So utility is a function of consumption, of course. Then here rho is basically the preference parameter. Basically rho measures the degree of preference for the current consumption compared to the future consumption. So imagine we have a consumer here or household here who is consuming over a period of time in his entire lifetime. So he is consuming at C0, C1, C2, C3, etc. until he is, for the entire period which is living. And that's why we are taking integration of CT, where T stands for consumption at the period T. Now, given that the consumer is preferring current consumption over the future consumption, so we have introduced that parameter rho, which is appearing as e to power minus rho minus n, n basically to take into account the population parameter, and here this CT is in terms of per capita consumption. Now CT is again defined as like we have done already in neoclassical and endogenous growth theories. It is in the form of a CRRA, so constant relative risk aversion characteristic this consumption function is having. So there CT appears in this form, right, where CT is equal to CT to power 1 minus theta then minus 1 over 1 minus theta. Okay, so this way the the utility function is defined for the consumer. This is standard, already we have done in the earlier growth theories. Now what is the trick here is used here? Basically this CT is used as some sort of aggregator for the consumption basket of an individual. Okay, so this individual household is consuming 3 types of goods. Okay, so some goods are produced in the agriculture sector, some goods are produced in the manufacturing sector or industrial sector, and some goods are produced in the services sector. Okay, so this small CT, which is basically per capita consumption, this has 3 components, and we will be using a consumption function due to Stone and Geary. Okay, so using Stone and Geary production function, we will have a consumption aggregator which basically takes into account 3 types of consumption goods, which is basically which are present within the overall consumption basket of the individual. Now, prior to I go to the details of the consumption function aggregator which we will be using, let me tell you the main idea behind this demand side explanation of structural change in the economic growth process is from Wagner and Kongsma to, I think, let me there is a Wagner's law, all of us know, no, not Wagner's, I think, Engel. Okay, Engel's law suggests that as per capita income increases, the share of food in overall expenditure declines, and share of non-food in the overall expenditure increases over time. Okay, this is Engel's law. That is basically the main idea behind this demand side explanation of structural change and economic growth. But Engel's idea was further refined by Kongshamut, Revello and Jai. Okay, so this reference is there in our Acemoglu 2001, Kongshamut, Revello and Jai. So this paper I will abbreviate as KRX. So they basically take ideas of Engel further. So what they suggest is, as income grow, the share of expenditure on agricultural good declines, and share of services in overall consumption basket increases. Okay, so that way the idea of KRX, Kongshamut, Revello and Jai, is taking idea of Engel further. Okay, so these basically the Engel's idea and KRX work that forms the basis for the demand side explanation to structural change and economic growth, which we are discussing. Now, the consumption aggregator in the Stone-Geary form appears like this. Okay, so here CT is per capita consumption. This is basically product of CAT minus lambda T whole to power alpha A. So where the CTA or CAT is basically consumption of agricultural good. Okay, I'll come to lambda A little after. CMT is consumption of manufacturing good, and CST is consumption of services good. Okay, so the per capita consumption is expressed as a function of all the three. Okay, where we have consumption of agricultural good, consumption of manufacturing good, and consumption of services. Now, what is this lambda A? Lambda is the subsistence level of consumption of agricultural good. Okay, this is the minimum amount of agricultural good which the consumer need to consume. Okay, at the subsistence level. Similarly, we have lambda S here. This basically captures the expenditure on services after a minimum threshold on consumption expenditure on agriculture and consumption expenditure on manufacturing is met. Okay, and of course the alpha A, alpha M, alpha S are corresponding coefficients. So this consumption function is not defined if the actual consumption of agricultural good is less than lambda A. Okay, now then so there are certain restrictions on this consumption function. Basically the alpha to power A, alpha M, alpha S, their sum is equal to 1, and then yeah, so the rest of the things I explained. Now this way of representing the consumption function per capita consumption has some advantages. As we go on from the utility maximization function of the consumer, we will derive that the growth rate of consumption of agriculture is higher compared to growth rate of consumption of manufacturing, and that is higher compared to the growth rate of consumption of agricultural goods as the economy grows. Okay, and so this basically explains the structural change. Using this framework, we will do that. We will do all the details as we go on. Now, coming to the production function, the production function is again has a special representation here. Here the production function for three different goods. This is agricultural output, this is manufacturing output, and this services output. So they are similar. like the production function of agricultural good is expressed as BA function of KAT XT LAT. Okay. Now similarly for the output of manufacturing sector is expressed similarly as a function of BM into F function of KMT XT LMT. Now all these three production functions are similar, and let me explain the terms here. Here the BA, BM, BS, etc. Basically B, it stands for Higgs neutral productivity term. Okay, and K stands for, of course, the capital used in that sector. Say KA is the capital used in production of agricultural goods. KS is the amount of capital used for production of services goods. Similarly, KM is the amount of capital used for production of manufacturing goods. Similarly, LA, LS and LM. Okay, L is standing for labor. Now here we are not discussing about labor. Here it is effective labor, because we have XTLAT or XTLMT. So this XT is basically Harrow neutral technology. So here basically this production function expressed as labor augmenting production function. So XT, the technology term, is associated with the LT. Okay, and here it is assumed that the technology in all the three sectors are similar. This is of course restrictive, but when we'll be discussing about the supply side explanation of the structural change and economic growth in our next video, there will have different technology for different sectors. Now our major emphasis, focus in this lecture is trying to explain the structural change and economic growth from demand side. So that's why, to make life simpler, we have assumed technology is similar. And unlike our previous neoclassical and endogenous growth theories, where you had used A to stand for technology, here we are using XT, because A is we are using for agriculture. So that's the XT stands for technology here at time T. And there is a technological progress, and this growth of technology, that is XT dot over XT is equal to G. So basically we are assuming that the technology in all the three sectors are growing at the same rate G. Okay, and of course in this production function we are assuming initial level of capital, labor and technology in all the three sectors are greater than 0. Okay, they starts with positive levels. And with this framework we have the market clearing conditions, where the sum of capital used in all the three sectors is equal to total capital. KIT stands for I for agriculture, manufacturing, services, etc. So the sum of capital used in all the three sectors at time T is equal to total capital. This is the market clearing condition for capital. Similarly, we have market clearing condition for labor. Okay, and then we have another assumption that the output of agricultural sector and services sector is completely used for consumption, whereas the output of manufacturing sector partly used for final consumption and partly used as investment good. Okay, so in with this logic we have YAT, this is output of agriculture sector, is equal to consumption of agricultural good, total consumption agricultural good, production is equal to consumption, and this consumption is per capita C multiplied by LT. Here actually I have not denoted T to make it simple. Similarly for the services sector also it is CS multiplied by LT. But for manufacturing goods are used for consumption as well as for investment. Okay, so that's why it is sum of CM, small cm into LT plus KT dot. Okay, now we'll assume that all the three markets, all markets are competitive, product market and goods market, both, I mean in all agriculture, services, manufacturing, all markets are competitive. and then if we are representing the consumption aggregator in logarithmic form, I will have a simpler notation here. So the log of total consumption expenditure, these exponents will now come here. So alpha A ln CA minus lambda A, then alpha M, this is ln Cm, similarly alpha S ln Cs plus lambda S. So with logarithm transformation, we are undertaking logarithm transformation to make our life easy, and from the utility maximization function with the logarithm transformation, we can get this equation. Okay, so basically we'll get alpha A over Ca minus lambda A multiplied by 1 over Pa is equal to alpha M over Cm 1 over Pm, and alpha S over Cs plus lambda S whole multiply 1 over Ps. Basically these three for different sectors will be equal. Okay, this we can derive from the utility maximization function of the consumer once we express the consumption aggregator in logarithmic transformation. Okay, now let us assume the price of manufacturing good to use as a numerator. So then PM becomes 1. Okay, so then the relative price of agricultural good is PA, relative price of services good is PS, and wage expressed in terms of numerator is W, and interest rate expressed in terms of numerator is R. Okay, so then we can have these simple equations. So where this 1 over PM is 1 over 1, PM we are using as a numerator, so this vanishes. So we have PA whole multiplied by Ca minus lambda A, okay, whole divided by alpha A is equal to Cm by lambda M. Okay, similarly for the services sector we will have a similar equation, and then wage rate and interest rate are expressed in terms of marginal productivity of labor and marginal productivity of capital, and this remains same across all the three sectors. Okay, if there is a difference, there will be movement of capital and labor to the sector where marginal productivity is high, and things will become equal over time. So under this setup, we'll have a competitive equilibrium path which can be defined in terms of path of Ka, La, Km, Lm, Ks, Ls, etc., from which will maximize profit of the producer. And similarly, this competitive equilibrium path will be also based on path for Ca, Cm, Cs, and total capital, which will maximize the utility of the household with the given constants. So what I'm trying to tell you, under this framework which we discussed, we can define the competitive equilibrium path, which in turn will be explained by the path of capital labor of each of the used in each of the production functions from the which maximizes profit of the producers in all the three sectors, and also this competitive equilibrium path will be defined in terms of path of sectoral consumptions like Ca, Cs, and Cm, and total capital, which will be maximizing the utility of the household, infinite living household, given the constraints. Okay, so now as I said, we have difficulties in terms of deriving the equations, so I am directly giving the results, and for derivations and details you may refer to Asimoglu. So from the profit maximizing function of the producer, we can get these two equations. Okay, so it is very simple. You basically define the profit function of the producer under agriculture we have already defined y multiplied by p is revenue, okay, and cost is w into LA. If I'm talking about agriculture sector, say my revenue for the producer of agriculture is YA multiplied by PA, and cost is, there are two costs: cost due to wage, cost due to rent or interest payment. Okay, so the cost due to wage is W multiplied by LA, and cost from capital is R multiplied by KA. So from that profit, which is basically revenue over cost, from that maximizing behavior, for all these sectors, if you simplify, you will get this, where PA is BM over BA and PS is BM over BS. This we are able to do because we are assuming the price of manufacturing good as the numerator. So PM is not appearing, which is 1. So otherwise this ratio would have been PA over PM. So that PM is basically vanishing because we are assuming it numerator. So these two equations we are deriving from the profit maximizing behavior of the producer. Now if I put these values of PA in our equation 1, this is equation 1 which I discussed earlier from the utility maximization function of the consumer. So here in place of PA, if I put the value as BM over BA, okay, then I get equation 3, which is expressed as BM whole multiplied by CA minus lambda A over BA over alpha A. Okay, this is for the services sector and this is for the manufacturing. So these three, basically this is, we are rewriting equation 1 by replacing PA with BM over BA and PS with BM over BS. Okay, now if you look at this equation, this gives us the hint that if lambda A and lambda S, if these two things are non-zero, then there cannot exist an equilibrium where all the three sectors grow at the same rate. Okay, so if you look at the structure of this, this equation, this is for the manufacturing sector, this is for the services sector, this is for the agriculture sector. Okay, these three are same. So if lambda S and lambda A are non-zero, then we cannot have an equilibrium where the three sectors will be growing at the same rate. Okay, so basically what we'll observe is as the economy grows, okay, we will basically will discuss about the balance here under the balanced growth path, the growth of consumption, overall consumption, that is CT, that asymptotically approaches a constant growth rate. Okay, so instead of balanced growth path, this long-term behavior of total consumption will define in terms of constant growth path. Okay, so it is constant growth path asymptotically equal to that constant rate. So overall economy, in the overall economy, overall consumption grows at a constant growth rate, but the growth rate of consumption of the three sectors, that is growth rate of consumption of agricultural good, growth rate of consumption of manufacturing good, and growth rate of consumption of services good, that will be different. So you have overall constant in the growth rate, but sectoral growth rate of consumption of all these three are different. Okay, so these sectoral growths will be defined like this. Okay, so from our general equilibrium problem, where we have the consumer behavior expressed in terms of the preference of an infinite living household, combined with the consumption function which we discussed of Stone-Geary type, consumption aggregator Stone-Geary type, and the type of production function which is specified, the general equilibrium will basically lead to this type of solution, where the growth rate of consumption of manufacturing group, that is CMT dot over CMT, will be equal to G. This G is basically growth rate of technology. As we discussed earlier, G is xt dot over xt, growth rate of technology. Okay, so the growth rate of consumption of manufacturing goods will be growing at the rate of G in this model. Okay, however, the growth rate of consumption of agricultural good can be derived as equal to G minus Ct minus lambda A over Cta or Cat, right? So now you see this. What about this entire thing? Here you have Ct minus something which we assume to be positive, and in denominator we have Ct. Okay, Cat minus something which is positive, and it is Cat. So numerator is greater than smaller than the denominator. Okay, so naturally the numerator is lower than the denominator, so this entire term will be less than 1 but positive. Okay, so this entire thing G minus something will be now less than G. Okay, similarly now if you look at the growth rate of consumption of services good, that is G plus something. Okay, so all the things are positive, so G plus something positive, this is G minus something, entire thing is positive. Okay, so you have growth rate of consumption of manufacturing good which is growing at the rate of G, growth rate of consumption of agricultural goods which are growing at the rate of less than G, and growth rate of consumption of services good which growing at the rate of greater than G. So the conclusion is, in this framework, the growth rate of services demand for services good for consumption growing at a higher rate compared to that of industrial goods compared to that of agricultural good. Okay, so there is unbalanced growth in terms of demand of consumption of the three sectors, good for three sectors, right? Now this also reflects in the workforce. See, from the same the general equilibrium framework with from the behavior of utility maximization and profit maximization, we will obtain this equation where we will get that the growth rate of employment in agriculture, that is LMT dot over LMT, is N. This is equal to growth rate of population. Okay, whereas growth rate of employment in the agriculture sector is N minus something, and on the right hand side of this term everything is positive, so N minus something, so it is less than N, and for the services it is N plus something which is positive, which is greater than N. So in this model we'll observe that not only the growth rate of consumption of services good is greater than industry or manufacturing, and that in turn greater than agriculture, even employment growth in services sector is higher compared to manufacturing, and that higher in terms of as compared to the agriculture. So broadly we can summarize that using a similar framework which we use for the neoclassical growth theory or endogenous growth theory, with small modification of that model where we had disaggregate consumption. So the consumption basket is explicitly taken to be consisting of agriculture, services, and manufacturing goods, and with the type of production function which we had specified for all the three sectors, the conclusion is there are structural changes in the growth process. Overall, there is a constant growth path. The consumption, income, and capital are growing at the constant rate. However, there is a shift in the composition of output led by demand. So this structural change in economic growth we are explaining in terms of demand-led approach. Okay, so because of the Engel's idea or Kongsumato, Rebello and Jai's idea, we suggest that as income increases, there is a shift. There is a fall in the share of food articles or primary good articles in the consumption basket, and there is gradual increase in share of services sector items in the basket. Using that idea, we had basically explained how there is a change in composition, output shifting, the share of output of agriculture is declining and share of output to manufacturing and services are increasing over time, and that reflects today's reality where in OECD countries or emerging economies, services sector is dominating in terms of output composition, and agriculture sector output is share is declining over time. And for most countries also, a similar shift is observed, corresponding shift is observed for the workforce. Okay, so I know it is difficult for you to follow as I didn't derive each of the equations, and this is basically constrained given that I'm working from home, and as I said, I don't have necessary infrastructure to explain to you the derivations, and you can use the reference for that. Okay, so next lecture we'll be discussing about how from supply side we'll explain the structural change and economic growth. Okay, thank you, all the best.